So now let's talk about the idle lands. But before that, by the way, my name is Florench Doris and I am here to continue the topic. So we have the idle land. Idle land is defined as property that is not being used or improved. It can be found in both urban and rural areas. So in the Philippines, the 1992 Urban Development and Housing Act, or UDHA, defines that idle land as non-agricultural land in urban and urbanizable areas that has not been improved by the owner. Idle government lands include the patrimonial properties of the state, public properties, properties foreclosed by the government financing institutions or the GFIs, and government-owned and controlled corporations or the GOCCs. So idle lands reduce the effectiveness of Carp in improving the agricultural productivity and the farmers' livelihoods. These lands often remain unused due to a lack of resources, disputes among beneficiaries, or a poor support. So infrastructure such as or poor support infrastructure such as irrigation system and roads. This defeats the program's goal of making land a productive asset. So for example, farmer was awarded um, land under the carp. It cannot be cultivated. It is because they lack access to the farm equipments or the seeds. These disputes over land boundaries among beneficiaries that leaves the land unproductive for years. So now we have number 7, which is the lack of support. The Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program, or the CARP, in the Philippines has faced many issues, including a lack of support from the government. So first is financial support, second, support services, and legislator support, landowner opposition, and fund resources. So first, in financial support, the government's financial support for CARP has been inadequate, with the program's share of the national budget fluctuating from 1% to 1.51% between 1999 and 2005. So in support services, a lack of support services has led to agrarian reform beneficiaries, or the ARBs, engaging in illegal activities such as selling or leasing land without adequate support services. Agricultural productivity on carp lands has been reduced by as much as 34.1%. Next, we have the legislator support. Legislators have not provided enough support for carp. Next, landowner opposition. Landowners have been resistant to CARP. Fund resources. CARP has faced wide gaps in fund resources. So without sufficient legislative support, CARP struggles with funding shortages, delays in land distribution, and lack of farmer training or financial aid. So the lawmakers with personal interest in land ownership, they may resist reforms or weaken the agrarian laws to protect their estates. So next we have the number 8, the incomplete awards. Incomplete awards refer to situations where beneficiaries of the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program are granted collective ownership through certificates of land ownership awards, or the CLOAs, or partial documentation rather than clear individual land titles that ensure full ownership rights. So incomplete awards create uncertainty and um, inefficiency in land ownership. Beneficiaries with collective CLOAs share ownership of the land with other farmers, it making it too difficult to divide and manage or use the land effectively. So this type of shared ownership often leads to disputes over boundaries, decision making, and responsibilities without individual titles. So ang mga farmers, they are not secure to open loans or using their land as collateral. Next, sell or transfer the land independently. So they cannot sell or transfer the land independently. Next, they cannot access the full legal protections for their property rights. So this issue undermines CARP's goal of empowering individual farmers and increasing agricultural productivity. So it can also discourage beneficiaries from investing or fully utilizing the land due to lack of security over the ownership. So next we have the absentee landlords. Absentee landlords, wherein landlords who no longer reside on or personally manage the lands they own but continue to maintain control or derive income from these properties even when the lands are intended for redistribution under CARP. So absentee landlords, it exploit the loopholes in the CARP. So it undermines its goal of redistributing land to tenant farmers and improving rural livelihoods. So instead of ceding control, they find ways to maintain the influence. So often by leasing back redistributed land at a low rate or using the intermediaries to manage the land. So this perpetuates inequality and prevents farmers from fully benefiting from their awarded land. So the lack of proper enforcement of agrarian laws, it allows this issue to persist, frustrating CARP's mission to empower farmers and ensure the land productivity. So lastly, we have difficult transactions. Processes for selling, transferring, or managing CARP distributed lands are complex, especially when multiple owners or heirs are involved, requiring unanimous consent. So when a CARP beneficiary passes away or died, or shares ownership of land with others through collective CLOAs, all the parties must agree to any transactions involving the land. So this often leads to disagreements and legal disputes that might delay the decisions. Additionally, the bureaucratic hurdles and incomplete documentation further complicate the transaction. So these challenges discourage the investment and leave the land underutilized or idle, hindering the program's goals of agricultural development and economic improvement for the farmers. So, ang difficult transactions, kaya pwede siya mahimong idle land. So, I think that's all for our part. So, thank you.